What is up, y'all? It's your girl Naya B, and I know some of you are probably thinking, "Your girl who?" So let me introduce myself. My name is Anaya, but I like to introduce myself as Naya. My middle name is Bernae. That's Bernae, and you put it together, and that is Naya B. So I am so excited to welcome you to the very first episode of my new podcast, Direct Your Life, sis. This will be your wellness checkpoint where we discuss how we can direct our lives through wellness practices, true healing, and the real life experiences that help us get to where we are today. Because growth isn't linear and none of us are alone in it. I know it feels like we are sometimes, but we're not alone. So today I'll share my journey to starting this podcast. It is a long story, so you might want to grab a snack or two, get some tea, whatever your choice beverage is, and get a little cozy with me. We will also talk about the future of the show. Where do I see it going? Some different pointers that will make this podcast stand out. Who inspires me and who inspires me the most in this industry? All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so I must say that at first I did not want to start a podcast. Over the last few years, there's been a podcast craze, and I feel like the industry is oversaturated. I mean, we got NFL stars having podcasts, we got, the regular celebrities, people that we've known all these different years. But for me, like, I never realized I could start my own podcast too. There's just so many different podcasts out there, and it's even overwhelming for me as a podcast lover to even think about the pods that I wish I had more time to watch because there's another one that I would rather watch more. So I was like, I don't even want no part of that. I really don't like the media that much. I'm really nervous about people criticizing me, but there's a story to how I got here and how I have overcome that fear of judgment. But that's what we are going to go over today. Just the fact that the idea of putting myself out there in this grand, dangerous world of media just gives me a bit of anxiety. So bear with me. But as I kept going along in my very basic day to day life as your average young mid 20s lady, I was finding that I was so bored and I was depressed and I didn't feel fulfilled in how I was spending my time. I mean, for a minute, y'all, I was just going to work, torturing myself in my head while I'm there, and then driving home to just watch a couple of episodes of my favorite show. I and then go to sleep, of course, very early, I might add, because I love to get at least 7 hours of sleep and then do it all over again. Yeah, not very fun, especially not for somebody in their mid 20s with no kids. I'm sorry, like, girl, get a life. So, anyways, I found myself looking forward to the weekend a little too much, and it'd be weekends that I'm not even doing nothing. And the only other thing that I would look forward to is like trips with my boyfriend or my friends, a good trip away from reality. And that just didn't sit well with me. And you know what? I acknowledge that those feelings are very common, very normal, that sort of work, home, sleep, repeat lifestyle is very common and absolutely normal. I know that. But it definitely isn't the lifestyle that I imagined for myself when I first walked into adulthood. So to get out of that rut, I often would think of things that I'm naturally good at, that I also enjoy. That's what folks say you should do when you want to build a career that you won't dread on a day to day basis. But I didn't land on anything that stuck. Nothing was really popping out to me that I felt would actually bring a real difference in my life. Let's be honest, who really wants to work 40 to 50 years doing something that doesn't set their soul on fire or make them really want to get out of their bed in the morning? Nobody. Nobody wants to do something like that. So, it takes a lot of reflection to find that. And we're human. So we got to do what we got to do to get through this thing called life that loves to throw curveballs at us at all the right times. So instead of just thinking of things that I enjoy, I reflected on things that other people often see in me. I often receive compliments on my public speaking voice and my presence in front of people. And to be honest, a little story time. Of course, this is the beginning of it. Public speaking is something I've been doing since I was 8 or 9 years old. I remember giving a speech to the entire student body when I was going out for student body president. Now, who was student body president in elementary school? Where do they do that at? Like, who did I think I was? I don't know, but hey, I was super excited and the opportunity came and I wanted to give that speech, all right? I don't remember a lick of what I was talking about. I probably said something like, "No homework on Fridays," or something, but I do remember what I did after I was elected. And the local news station came to my school for an assembly, and they interviewed me, and I don't recall having any nerves then. And that actually reminds me, whenever I was even younger than that, my friend and we would craft up like a paper TV and act like we were broadcasting on TV, like on the news. So there's always been something in me that was being called or directed, if you will, to some sort of spotlight, I guess. What do I always want to be center of attention. Um, but as I got older, my dad would always tell me to broaden my horizons. That's something that rings so loud in my ears. But he was basically trying to say, get into some different things, expand your capabilities. And it inspired me, of course, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I was like 8 years old. And I did usually excel in school, and I also did play sports. My favorite subjects in school were always English and social studies up until like high school when things started turning into politics. Yeah, my government and politics class kicked my butt. But I did enjoy English and social studies for the most part. I also loved to write. When I was young, I used to write short stories, and I also thought that I could draw, so I would illustrate my little stories and everything. But those are different things that I know I liked and things that were always a constant in my adolescent years. But anyways, back to sports. I was never like super good at any of the sports that I played because I only played during the school year and I didn't like truly study any sport for real, but I definitely enjoyed playing sports and being on a team. I played softball, tennis, a little bit of basketball. I'm 5'10", and I swear, y'all, I am terrible at basketball. But now I like to watch it, and I was always good at free throws, but never anything else. Okay, so I enjoyed being on a team. I enjoyed having one common goal, okay? And my dad and I really bonded over sports when my mom and him got divorced. I was eventually inspired to become a sports broadcaster. Yeah, like I wanted to be on ESPN. And I was so excited because I knew that that was a career path that would make my parents both really, really proud of me. So I pursued it. Come time for college applications, I was accepted into the University of Kentucky for journalism. And once I got there, I tried my best to hit the ground running. Like, freshman year, I wrote articles for tennis, swimming, volleyball, maybe soccer or gymnastics, I can't remember. And I was having a lot of fun. That was a really fun time. I remember I interviewed one of the volleyball players in her dorm room, and I felt like I was that girl. I felt like I was a journalist and I was having fun. And she even assured me that I was doing a good job interviewing her. And it was just a good time. And I felt encouraged. Time went on, And I started getting more involved in campus. I joined a sorority, Zeta Phi Beta. I was trying to get active in other things, trying to have a social life. And somewhere along the way, that fire in me for chasing my journalism dream completely died off. I don't remember if it was the competitiveness of sports broadcasting program or just that I felt like I didn't know enough about sports in general, or maybe it was just how stressful the life of a journalist really did seem at that time. What I do remember is being at a church and listening to a sermon where the speaker talked about how believers should seek God's permission for any and everything that they do. And here I was, a self proclaimed believer, stressed out over somebody else's article, stressed out and worried that the life of a journalist wouldn't bring me the familial life that I always wanted and craved for, but instead a life of loneliness. And I was just unsure about that path at that time and the decisions that I had made at that point to keep trying the journalism thing. I believed that fire was dying because God didn't give me confirmation to even go after that dream. So I did pray about it. I let some time go on, and God confirmed that I didn't really need to nor want to apply for a different college. So I stayed in the College of Communication and just switched to a healthcare focus. And that being justified by the healthcare industry's necessity in society. I felt like I was always gonna have a job, okay? When I tell you that stuff was so boring, and anybody who was in there with me can probably attest to that. I do remember and appreciate some professors who made the content interesting with group projects, and we got to incorporate graphic design elements into some of the projects. Those were things that I enjoyed, and I enjoyed the people that I was able to work with and study with. But boy, those day to day classes were boring. The business communications classes were fun, but I'm telling you, that healthcare stuff was like, sorry, but I didn't know what that was gonna lead into. So overall, by the time senior year rolled around, I wasn't sure about a career path in healthcare communications. And I hadn't had a relevant internship either. So I was really shaking in my boots. I mean, it's fall semester of senior year, and I don't know what I'm doing when I graduate. So more soul searching and reflecting needed to happen. I ended up doing some research and I found two grad school programs I was super interested in. It was either going to be healthcare administration or human resources management. So after some consulting at Kentucky's Career Center, I chose the human resources program because I'm a natural empath. I'm passionate about some of the work that is done in HR, and I was just really interested to go to the school that this program was at. I also remember watching my parents work their behinds off at factories when I was growing up, and they'd come home often complaining about the working conditions or something that management did or their feet and their back hurting from standing up all day, etc. So that inspired me to be in HR. Like maybe I could be the person supporting those types of employees who are just like my parents. Great. All right. So I get into the HR master's program at the Ohio State University. Who would have thought? Little me from Louisville, Kentucky, heading up to Columbus for a master's degree. I felt like I was leaning into the right thing. The program was only 3 semesters, and I knew I would get a cool internship at an established company because it was a requirement of the program, and there were some pretty impressive companies listed on the website saying, like, "These are places that our graduates end up having jobs at, and this is where you can network," and all of these great things. So, I felt passionate about the employee wellness space and benefits administration, which I am still very passionate and interested in learning more about. And I just knew that I was going to get there and I was going to make something happen. That was the direction I felt at the time. As the program went on, I was learning the ins and outs of business from the HR lens, and I came away from each semester learning something new that I hadn't thought about before. I did believe the content I was learning was very relevant and comparable to my communications background, though. So I was excited to see where the program was going to take me. I was also getting acquainted with my classmates, some more than others, but I remember this guy named Robbie. And towards the end of the program, we had a group project together and he put me aside and said, "You know what, Anaya? You have a really good voice for podcasting. I think you should start a podcast." And I was like, "Hold up. Who is he to be telling me I should start a podcast?" And I was like, "I don't know what it would be about," but I took the compliment. I took the compliment and the encouragement because, of course, it made me think about the possibilities of the past, where would I have been if I stuck with journalism back in Kentucky. So I received the compliment and I was like, I don't know what I would talk about, but thank you. I really appreciate it because I don't like my voice that much. He was just always really supportive from then on. And at that time, I did start listening to podcasts before that. So grad school is when I really started listening to podcasts, mostly business ones to kind of keep me thinking about Fortune 500 and all the different companies doing crazy things these days. T-Boy, the best one yet, one of my favorites. The Journal with Ryan Knutson, keeping me informed of news. And then, of course, I'm an OG Call Her Daddy fan. So, Alex, if you're out there listening, please, please. But I didn't see the same potential in myself that I saw in the host of those shows. Like, they were all basically experts in the main topics of their shows. And then there was me, who was lucky enough to be getting by in grad school by the grace of landing good group project teams and some good old fashioned professor butt kissing. But little did I know, God was just placing little seeds for me to hold on to that would eventually come full circle later in my life. Okay, so getting back into what other people were seeing in me, when I did live in Ohio, I also worked at Marshall's part-time for a bit, and so many customers would say that I reminded them of Tabitha Brown. And even now, my coworker, she continues to tell me how I remind her of Oprah or that I have this Oprah-like energy. And don't get me wrong, those are honorable compliments. I am always shocked and honored to receive those compliments because those two people are like the biggest of aspirations that I could ever aspire towards. Now the Auntie Tab comparison, people could have just been saying that because they thought I looked like her. At the time, I was growing a fro. I had cut off my first set of locks, and it was like a cute tapered short cut, but it was definitely giving fro. So maybe they just thought that I looked like her, or maybe just like my overall energy reminded them of her. Still, whatever it was, best compliment I could have ever received. I love Tabitha Brown. But again, the idea of putting myself out here in the media just gives me a certain level of anxiety. I just don't really want people commenting on my content with harsh words or criticism, and I definitely don't want to offend anyone either. So I just don't like the pressure that comes with being in the media, but you know, God always has other plans whenever we try to make our own. And getting those compliments, I'm just like, wow, I dream of being like Auntie Tab because she's just so authentically herself and still loved by so many people. And her story is just really raw and real. And you can see the reflection of God's divine plan in her testimony. And of course, the same with Oprah. I mean, my Lord. All right. So you're probably wondering, how does someone go from being so unbothered by cameras as a child and always wanting to be in the spotlight to having media anxiety as a young adult? I don't know. But I will say some of my experiences in my adolescent years that I may or may not eventually open up about on the podcast, they really did diminish the drive for that spotlight that I used to carry. And I just felt like I was pushing towards something bigger than myself, and I didn't know what to do with that. I will say that my path through Ohio State was very purposeful. I ended up landing an internship right at the beginning of internship application cycle. So listen to this. I mean, if this doesn't inspire you, I don't know what will. So I literally did not struggle at all. And I know that's not everybody's story, but I just felt so blessed. And then to think about where I am now, it just all comes full circle. So I had casually interviewed with a few major companies who attended the job fair on Ohio State's campus. And I was looking forward to the journey to find which place I would end up. I even spoke with someone from the company that my dad works at, and that felt really full circle in the moment. It was a great conversation, but it didn't lead me to apply for the internship. It didn't go anywhere. Well, where I did end up, and this is just another showcase of God's divine intervention in my life. So, y'all, a group of students in the HR program, along with the MBA program, we were going to go on a trip to Chicago for the National Black MBA Conference. And that conference was going to be full of different companies there to network with and interview with for students to hopefully find an internship or a full time job opportunity and everything like that. I mean, this was a juicy, juicy conference setup, okay? Y'all, I kid you not. My internship interview with this company that I still work at now was set up on the morning of the flight out to Chicago. And it was like a half day setup where I'd have to have multiple interviews or some sort of interaction with the company throughout the day. I was like, how am I going to make that work? Why do they have to pick this day? So boom. I get through the first half and it's like an accelerated group project type vibe. And I had a puppy at the time. So here I am waking up in the morning. I got to drop the puppy off to the boarding school because I'm about to go on this long trip. I got interviews to do. It's just a whole lot going on this one day. So I'm all packed up for the trip. I've done research on the company. I'm feeling pretty good and I'm juiced up. I'm ready. Okay. They can throw me anything. All right. I'm your girl. I'm your girl. You're gonna want to hire me. Okay. So I get through the group portion and I apply myself in the conversation with the other students. And basically the guy facilitating the interview, he's probably asking himself questions like who's leading the conversation, who is presenting creative ideas with confidence, and who's attempting to support those ideas with confidence and all that good stuff. Okay. So that part ends, and I can't remember how the call really ended, but I do remember I had to make my way to the airport in time for my individual interview. Talk about lighting a fire under your behind. So I had to pack up my laptop, pack up the rest of my stuff, and get out the door, meet my friend to get to the airport together. So I'm now with the rest of the OSU students, and some of them knew I had the interview. So I'm telling them how juiced up I am about it, how I got to get through security so I can do the next part of the interview. And I felt like this next part was the most important part of the interview. Y'all, I got through security, sat down at a window, and got my laptop out, only for the meeting to start having technical difficulties. I don't remember if I was having audio problems or camera issues. I couldn't get on camera, but I remember telling the woman who was interviewing me, like, Miss, please, please, please let me do a regular phone call interview. Just call my cell phone. Is that okay? Will that work? Please, can we make it work? So my heart's skipping beats and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, God, you would not have led me this far just for me to make it this far. Okay. And she says, of course, I'll call you. Thank God. So, boom, kill the interview. I make sure to remember this woman's name who's interviewing me. And even to this day, she's a very special person in my life. I felt like we related in multiple different ways, and that was that. End of the interview. And at this point, it was just in God's hands. I had to refocus, get to this conference, get on this plane. But y'all, when I tell you where this goes, you will have no choice but to be inspired to chase your dreams and to keep your faith in those dreams. So we land in Chicago, and this is all still the same day. Remember, technically, this is the first day of the conference where so many students are going to be interviewing for internships. Why? As soon as my roommate and I get to our room, I get a call from the recruiter and he tells me that they want to hire me for the internship. Uh, my mind was blown. I woke up that morning with hope and angst in my spirit, but I definitely prayed for confidence and for God to lead me through those interviews. And I ended the day securing an internship while everybody else around me was still going to be looking for one. If that's not divine intervention, I don't know what it. So fast forward past the whole summer internship experience, and the company ended up extending my internship further into the fall semester that year, and they hired me to return as full time in their early careers program the next summer after I finished my master's program. Isn't God good? What a blessing that was and still is, of course. So those are the experiences that have led me to where I am today. Over the last few years, I've been learning how this corporate world works. How do I show up in the corporate world, and how I, as an HR professional, can be utilized to impact the lives of our employees. But today, that's all you're getting about my place of work for now. If you know, you know. And thank you for not saying anything in the comments. I'm saying that all of that is how I've gotten to where I am today. I've lived in 4 different cities in the last 4 years. I'm constantly thinking about how I show up in my role, how I'm performing. Am I being effective enough? Am I applying myself enough? Shoot, I even question if my MHRM program was even worth it sometimes. But then I remember, duh, without it, I wouldn't be at the company that I'm at right now. So yes, it was worth it. Point being that I haven't felt like I'm truly living out my purpose just yet. There have been good days, bad days, lessons learned by observing others, and lessons learned from my own mistakes or failures. But at the end of the day, I have felt like something's missing in my professional life for a little bit of time now. Here recently, I've had a lot of thoughts, and more vulnerably, I've had a lot of conversations with God about my different passions. I've had a lot of conversations with people in my innermost circles about what other things I would or could enjoy. So, we're back at the beginning of this episode where I said was finding that I was so bored and I was depressed and I didn't feel fulfilled in how I was spending my time. And here I am today. God is doing it again. He's reigniting that fire for me to use my voice, to stand up for what I believe in, to help others, and to bring light to other young people who've triumphed through similar struggles as well. Recently, God used some folks who are very close to me to provide me the clarity that I needed to start this podcast, to take the leap of faith that I was so terrified to take, that I still am terrified to take. But after fasting and consistent prayer, I'm more energized about it. And it's because this is all me and God. I'm not starting this podcast to make anyone proud but myself. And after years of sitting back, watching my friends from college go on and chase their dreams and learn, grow, apply themselves, and become experts in their fields. I'm very proud of all of them. They're traveling the world, starting families, starting businesses, dropping albums, etc., etc. Instead of envy, I finally feel some inspiration, not only to share about my own experiences, but to amplify the experiences of others in my generation who are out here making their dreams their realities. So that's what this podcast will be all about. And I truly hope each and every episode uplifts and encourages the young people of today. Whether you're 19 or 32, this one is for you, okay? I'm here to be a sister, big or little. I'm here to learn, and I'm here to help provide direction in any way that I can, because we are not alone in the things that we feel, and we are not alone in the doubts that we may have. We are not the only ones who have asked the question, even as an adult, what do I want to be when I grow up? What legacy do I want to leave when I'm no longer on this earth? And we won't get any answers if we don't at least try. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying, and I'm trying to curate my dream into my reality. My dream that I thought had died. My dream that I thought I'd have to go through a major corporation to reach. But that isn't the world that we live in today. And I'm so grateful for that. We can make our dreams come true by utilizing the tools that we do have in the network that we've built to get up and get after it. So that's what I'm trying to do. Right. What I love most about podcasts is that every podcast has something that makes it unique. Hosts usually have some sort of questionnaire or a game to play at the end of every episode. Little shout out to some of my favorites, Kiki Palmer's podcast and Scott Evans' house guest on YouTube, two of my favorite podcasts, and they play games and ask cute questionnaires. I love them. Okay. So on Direct Your Life, Sis, we're going to have 4 outro points at the end of each episode. If it's a solo episode and it's just me, my answer may or may not change depending on the difference in time that I'm recording myself. But once I start getting guests on the show, things will get more interesting. Okay? The answers will get real interesting. The first outro point will be the life sis of the week. Every episode, I'll highlight someone who I admire or someone who is an expert on the topic that I'm talking about. And this week, the life sisters that I want to honor are all of my aunties, older cousins, my grandmother, and my mom. They are all my biggest role models and have been a crucial influence on the woman who I am today. I cannot launch anything like this without acknowledging those women, those who have guided me here. So to my mommy, my aunties, my Maymay, and my older cousins, I love you. And this show is the platform where I plan to feed the younger generation of women the same life nuggets that you have instilled in me. So thank you. And I'm honoring you with this shout out on my first episode of my podcast. Hopefully it goes big. Okay. All right. The second outro point is the question, are you well, sis? For a while, my answer to that question was no. You wouldn't have known that just by looking at me or by scrolling through my social media feed, but I have not felt like my true self in a while. And I thank God that I don't look like what I've been through. None of us do. So take that as a testimony. But a lot of that stems from the lack of direction, or perhaps even just my own ignorance to God's divine plan for my life that I just explained throughout this entire episode. So, on top of that, over the last few years, I've gone through a couple of different heartbreaks, had some unexpected core losses in my family. As mentioned earlier, I've moved to 3 or 4 different cities in the last 3 or 4 years, gaining and losing friendships, depression and loneliness. The list goes on and on. But my core support group has consistently and constantly uplifted me and ultimately has helped me get to where I am today. So I'm grateful to now say that my answer to "Are you well, sis?" is yes. I am very well. God really has spoken through some of my favorite people to get to me and to help me identify my voice, how I'm supposed to use my voice. And I'm excited about where this journey is going to take me. It all is just divine intervention. I mean, I sat here and told you how comfortable I was in the spotlight as a little girl. So now I feel like I'm gonna start living that out, and I'm just so excited. Now, the second question that will be part of the outro for each episode is, "What's keeping you well, sis?" And it can be brother too. If I have a guy on, well, I'll change everything to bro or whatever, or whatever people's pronouns are. Um, right now, what's keeping me well is staying connected to God. I've been praying more consistently and I'm trying to read more, not only just my Bible, but also some of the books that have been on my to read list for the last few years now. Shame, yes, shame me. Okay. I read very slow. Sorry. But I just started The Color Purple, and I've also been reading a nonfiction book called The Wisdom of Insecurity, An Age of Anxiety, something like that. I'm probably gonna have to do a whole episode on that book on its own, okay? Because it's got some gems. But just the act of feeding my mind content other than social media or TV streaming has been transformational in my own mental health. So for that, I am very grateful. Other things that are keeping me well are my burn boot camps. If you know, you know, okay? But since starting my Burn membership, I've reignited my fire for fitness. For a while in 2025 and 2024, I was not pushing myself in the gym. Like I'm always active, I try to stay active, but I'm now reaching small checkpoints that even in the past I never would have thought that I would ever reach, and different milestones that will hopefully help me reach my goals. I'm really trying to, get fine out here. All right. But honestly, I could probably do a whole episode on burn as well. We'll save all of that for a deep dive into fitness a little later. The last thing that I would say that's keeping me well is staying involved at my church. So, the church I go to right now is in a season of growth, rapid growth, but the people there are so good and amazing. They're very welcoming, family oriented, and kind. I've been going there since like June of last year, and just the fact that people don't count me out because I don't have like my family here with me really means something to me. And even I brought my little brother whenever he came to visit me here last year. I brought my little brother to church and the men at the church prayed over him. And I just felt like that was beautiful, 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 because at any other church that I have brought him to, my brother's in the Navy, um, no one would have nobody would have done that, and they just know how to make people feel seen, so I love that. Anyways, when I started going to that church, I felt empowered to serve in some way, and if you know me, you know that anywhere that I live, one thing Imma do is find me a church home. So this time, I didn't wanna just go to church. I wanted to get active and serve and actually grow deeper in my relationship with God, and He's led me to do that. So, the last outro point for Direct Your Life Sis, or DYLS for short, will be the life nugget of the week, Naya's life nugget of the week. And that's where I'll share a tinge of encouragement or some facts about whatever topic I chose that week to the content of the episode. This week's life nugget is that we must feed and maintain energy and direction towards the things that we are most passionate about. I literally just told you a whole story about how I thought I wanted to be a broadcaster, kind of gave up on that dream, And somehow God has just brought me right back to doing the same thing. But this time it's me in control of it. We have to maintain that direction towards the things that we are most passionate about. Because if not, we may not reach the life of abundance that God has for us. And I don't care if you're not a believer or if you struggle with faith. Look, there is a purpose for your life. Okay. And I say that looking directly into the camera. Whoever is watching or listening to this, there is purpose for your life. There's a plan. And you just really have to listen in the quiet moments. What brings you joy? What is something that you're good at? What do other people see in you that you may not even see in yourself? So go after the things that you're passionate about. It's a true statement that when we're too busy working on somebody else's dream, ours will diminish and be silenced. So don't nobody got time for that. You need to get up, get out, and get something, okay? And it should be with your name on it, all right? The way that you foresee it. And we all should be pursuing what makes us happy. And if you're listening and you don't know what that is just yet, keep showing up for yourself every day. If you are a person that does pray, seek God's guidance. Seek guidance from a trusted individual or a group of individuals if you're not a believer. And I'm sure that the thing that sets your soul on fire will be revealed to you. I know this because it's worked for me. I am so eternally thankful for you listening to the very first episode of Direct Your Life, Sis. DYLS for short. And next week, we'll be getting into our first real topic. And I can't wait to get into it because I know it's going to resonate with some folks in this. I thank you so very much for listening. And if you're thinking about how to best support this podcast, please, please, please like, comment, follow on all of your podcast platforms, subscribe on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you back next week for episode 2 of Direct Your Life, Sis with Naya B. Peace.